Welcome back to Morning Joe. Glenn Simpson, whose firm Fusion GPS compiled the now infamous and unverified 35-page dossier about President Trump's alleged ties to Russia, spent more than 10 hours being questioned by the Senate Judiciary Committee earlier this week. The committee's chairman, Chuck Grassley, said yesterday he will hold a committee vote to release the transcripts of that hearing and that he presumed they will be released.
Senate Judiciary Committee staff members met for 10 hours. I would like to know what they discovered in that meeting, and I would like the transcripts released. Will you do that?
Yeah. The answer is it'll take a vote of the committee to do it.
Will you do that?
Of course, we'll put it to a vote of the committee.
Will you personally vote for the release of the transcripts?
I don't know why I wouldn't.
Senator Grassley also said Simpson and his attorney would have to receive a copy of the transcript to look over before it was made public. But an attorney for Simpson told MSNBC, quote, "The transcript reveals all of Mr. Simpson's testimony based on the hours of questioning from staff. The committee can release the transcript if it so chooses." He also added, "We appreciate the opportunity to review the transcript and will do so. At the end of the day, that transcript is the committee's. It is not ours." Joining us now, a member of the Judiciary Committee here in New York City, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. Senator, good to see you this morning. Will these transcripts be made public?
I believe they will be. I certainly will vote to make them public. They should be made public, but even more important, Glenn Simpson should testify before the committee in the open, under oath, and so should the others who should be subpoenaed to do so as well, Donald Trump Jr. and the anyone involved in that meeting in early June that involved apparently Jared Kushner and others.
Now, remind people, if you can, Senator, why Glenn Simpson is potentially significant to the investigation here.
He's significant to the investigation because he compiled a dossier that implicated Donald Trump in the Russian meddling and other potential wrongdoing, but also he is apparently a close associate of Renat Atneshkin, who was involved in that early June meeting, right, where others attended, including the president's then campaign manager, Paul Manafort, as well as Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner. So he has potentially knowledge about matters relating to Trump collusion with the Russian meddling, as well as possible obstruction of justice. And we're going to proceed with our investigation, but as you well know, the special counsel is proceeding as well. And we want to make sure, whether it's the release of the transcript or anything else, that we in no way conflict with the special counsel's role. In fact, he should be protected by legislation that I've offered and others. It's bipartisan, that would make sure that there's no political interference.
Can you offer any insight to the extent you're able to say, was he a compelling witness? Did he become more interesting to you after 10 hours of testimony?
Every witness is going to be interesting to me, and every witness potentially has facts that are relevant to the investigation, and those facts may be more interesting the more we learn.
Mark?
Senator, one of the issues that seems to be coming to a head is who were Glenn Simpson's two customers? Who were the two people who hired his firm to look at the president's background, where it is said that one was a Republican entity or person, one was a Democrat? His firm seems to be claiming, even though they're not a law firm, that there's some sort of attorney or client privilege here. Should the government be able to compel an investigative firm to reveal who its clients were?
An investigative firm, unless they are working for an attorney and somehow that kind of investigative result is a attorney-client work product, certainly is unprotected. So the committee ought to be able to subpoena all these.
Did he in fact refuse to say who his clients were in his testimony?
I can't go into what the substance of the testimony was, but again, my hope is that there will be no objection to his testifying fully and frankly before our committee.
What about other members testifying? You mentioned Donald Trump Jr. You want to hear him testify. Has he been cooperating with your investigation? When are we going to hear from him?
My hope is that he and others will be fully cooperative. They have very important information about the substance of that meeting, which directly implicates, potentially, the Trump campaign. And the question is, what did the president know and when did he know it? And protecting the special counsel through legislation that we've offered is more and more important. It's bipartisan legislation because the closer we come to those kinds of facts, the greater the threat will be of political interference.
Senator Joe has a question for you.
Senator, a couple of questions. It's always great to have you on the show. First question, obviously a lot of distraction over the past week or so with Charlottesville, with the president equating Nazis with protesters, neo-Nazis with protesters. So some attention has been turned from North Korea, Charlottesville, from this Russian investigation. First of all, are you still pleased with the direction that the Senate's, that your committee's investigation is going? Do you think there's still good bipartisan cooperation? Are you confident that you all are pursuing aggressively the truth on this? And secondly, what's the status of the legislation proposed by several people to give Robert Mueller the time and the space and the freedom that he needs to do his job without being fired by the President of the United States or people that the President of the United States orders to fire?
I am pleased so far with the bipartisan approach to the investigation, and I'm satisfied that Chairman Grassley is committed to uncovering all of the truth surrounding potential obstruction of justice in the firing of Jim Comey and other action and threats that the president has taken. This obstruction of justice goes directly to our oversight responsibility for the Department of Justice. And Chairman Grassley has indicated in the past how strongly he believes in protecting whistleblowers and the role they play in uncovering the truth. And I think that the legislation that we've offered to protect the special counsel against political interference has growing bipartisan support. It was introduced by myself and Lindsey Graham, Tom Tillis, both Republicans, as well as Democrats, 3 Democrats along with myself. And it has growing support, mainly, I think, because of the apparent boomeranging that we're seeing, the veering of the president, zigzagging between the unifier and divider, and some of the rhetoric attacking the press, very, very chilling in Phoenix, questioning their loyalty. And at the end of the day, in our investigation, as well as in the special counsel's investigation, I think that the heroes of this era will be the free press and the independent judiciary, who have become the bulwarks of our democracy.
All right, Senator Richard Blumenthal, we know you have to run off to work. Appreciate you stopping in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Always good to be with you.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.